Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Movie Screeners Club podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Falk. The Movie Screeners Club is brought to you by Designing Hollywood Productions, in association with Gardena Cinema. If you want to win the chance to have your short film screened in a huge theater and the opportunity to be interviewed on our podcast, please submit your film today on our website, themoviescreenersclub.com.
Hello, my name is John Sylva. I am the director and producer of Sylvia Says Goodbye, which is a short film that I shot with my team 1 year ago as part of a 48-hour film competition. This is the first audience in Los Angeles or California to see the film. So very excited to share it with an audience for the first time next week.
I have to say, I watched the short earlier today. There is so much story in only 3 minutes. Like it is pretty crazy how much story you crammed into this tiny short. I was really impressed.
Thanks.
When you're directing something, especially when you only have 48 hours to do it, but when you're directing something where you know that you need to hit all of these little story plot points, there's so many little twists and turns and stuff like that where you're kind of leading us one way with like a specific genre. Like I thought it was just going to be like some sappy breakup short, and then you totally, take it 180 and make it so much more full. When you're directing your actors to emote so many different emotions and like really steer the story the way that it needs to be steered in 3.5 minutes, what are you kind of doing to ensure that that happens on set?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Having the time constraint of 48 hours to write, direct, shoot, produce, and edit, score, soundtrack, color time. Sometimes the entire film is it's very prohibitive, obviously, to spending a lot of time to create that environment, but it forces you to make decisions, and that's the really fun part of it. And so to align myself and to align oneself with a team of individuals that you're kind of all on the same page. And we had no idea what the prompt was going to be until just minutes before we started having to write the thing. So just knowing that you're around people who have similar artistic sensibilities, actors that I've worked with in the past, a writer on the film, the writer of the film, Amy Geist, who's also the lead actress. We've been working together for almost 20 years. We grew up in Ohio together, now both out here in LA and making movies, which is amazing. But we kind of know what we're looking for from each other when we start a project. And so just having that shorthand with people is very, very beneficial. Just being very conscientious of being very conscious of time and those limitations. Like I said, it forces you to make decisions very quickly. And I spend my day job is I'm a post production producer, so I work in movies, I work in television. It is my job to kind of like be as efficient as possible with like budgets and with editing and with scoring and everything else, which is also it's impossible to do. But I for a living I am trying to make things as efficient and streamlined as possible. So I try to apply those same principles as I do to the projects that I'm lucky enough to work on as a job, and to my own work. And hopefully somewhere we're able to achieve a big impact with minimal resources, which is exactly what we hope we did with this film.
Did you find that the time limit really forced you to collaborate with the rest of the team even more so, or are you just is that kind of just your basis, your normal your norm when you direct normally?
The time limit definitely forces the collaboration because it doesn't. I'm sorry. I'm going to say like the time limit doesn't force collaboration, but it definitely encourages it. And
Mhm.
I'm a quick thinker, but also I like to be a considered thinker. And
Mhm.
so if there's a collective of people that I inherently trust, although I am technically the director of the piece, and there are five other people around me that I consider fellow writers and producers and directors as well on it. All just there to say like Johnny, you're crazy. Like, don't think about this, or like yes, like why are you questioning this? And so having
Mhm.
the mutual support and encouragement of fellow voices that I trust and respect usually is very, very helpful in that process. But no matter what I'm making, I like to be very collaborative because the people can get I can get kind of tunnel vision into certain things that I'm not certain at a certain point are actually the best way forward to tell a story. And so to have the voices to kind of check me and discuss things and say like, maybe if we consider this, I'm always open to possibilities. And so as much
Mhm.
as I know what I want, especially once we're like actually, editing and like once we kind of shot the thing and I saw the footage, I'm like, all right, cool. Here's the piece. Like I can see it kind of in the linear fashion, even though the piece itself is non-linear. In the process of creating it, just being open to saying yes is really the key, the key for me.
Did the prompt resonate with you immediately, like, from the get-go, or did it take a little bit of storyboarding to kind of figure out
Oh
what your
yeah.
connection to it was?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, like because the prompt itself was really, really vague. It
Mm,
was I've done contests before where it's like you got to use a prop. You have to use like a flower or a
mhm,
newspaper or a pair of glasses, and you have to be inspired by this filmmaker. This was just literally like play with the conceit of time. And I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, my mind started going into like, Inception territory. And I'm like,
mhm,
that's not really typically the kind of film that I want to make. But like, what time is also memory. And so once I realized that, like, great, because some of my favorite movies and favorite filmmakers, do toy with the notions of time as it relates to memory specifically, and
mhm,
what it feels like to be living in one's own head, and how reliving an experience in one's own head is playing with time. So once I kind of realized with Amy, writer Amy, that like, okay, cool, that technically counts as playing with time,
mhm.
messing with memory. Let's go. And it was pretty cleaned up from there. But that took a few hours, which is kind of scary. I mean, to get to a point where we had a concept where we felt like kind of good about, and then you kind of let it sit for a second and then have it organically kind of evolve from there. And thankfully it did. But the first leg of it was challenging for sure.
Did picking the genre also come from that initial conversation, or is that part of the prompt too?
No, honestly, the genre I knew going into it, I was kind of hell bent on making a thriller,
Mhm,
and I just kind of said to the team and to myself, like, no matter what the prompt is, I really want to find a way to twist this into making a kind of movie that my favorite
yeah,
genre of film, but also one that I've never gotten to do before. So it was just a no matter what, I wanted to make this a fun exercise and
mhm.
thriller filmmaking.
I was gonna say you kind of walked the line between half thriller and half kind of like this lighthearted, a little coming of age, like breakup. I don't know, I
Yeah.
thought like it reminded me a little of like Girls, where she's like, you know what, maybe I'll be better, in the future. Who cares about
Yeah.
him? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden she's crazy, it like turns out whatever. No
Yeah.
spoilers, but
Yeah. Yeah.
how did you decide that you kind of wanted to not reveal almost not reveal that it's a thriller until the very
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
and how did you kind of show that on screen?
Yeah, good question. I think that I enjoy the blurring of genres very
Mhm,
much and how you describe it. Those different, like two very, very polar opposite kinds of feelings or genres. I find like a lot of overlap in them, and I find that one of my favorite directors is Wes Craven, and my favorite movie of
mhm,
all time is Scream. And like that's a movie that if you're to watch certain scenes from it, you're watching like just like teenagers being teenagers and like
yeah,
trying to find the party to go to, and like they're excited because school's out, even though it's because someone got murdered. And so like
mhm,
the Wes Craven's really good at navigating genres all within the same scenes often, and same with filmmakers like Brian De Palma, where like you
mhm,
really don't know whether to like laugh or scream, or like is this like a romantic fantasy but um, film, or is it an erotic thriller where anyone might die at any given time? Who knows? So I enjoyed as a viewer having my expectations subverted, and
mhm,
I felt like Amy, who plays Sylvia, having her kind of inherently like warm presence like in the film. Um, Amy's such a brilliant actress, and I've seen her do everything from The Baker's Wife and Sweeney Todd to um, Harper and Angels in America. I mean, like she is so talented and multifaceted. But I find a very like a glowing warmth about her that
mhm.
like, well, let's fool everybody. I mean, let's just like this nice little love story, and let's have some fun and like play on that kind of presence.
Mhm.
And because Amy doesn't look necessarily like your stock serial killer. It's not really
Right.
a spoiler, but
I think that's pretty safe to assume.
yeah. And so just I enjoy that kind of ride as a viewer and
Mhm.
knowing that it's only 4 minutes long. Um, I don't have any delusions about what one can actually accomplish in 4 minutes. Like no matter what, it's going to be a bit of a magic trick. Hopefully, if we were successful, and so that's what we try to achieve. So try to check a few boxes of things that we'd love to do and make them all into one kind of um, dysfunctional package.
Yeah, big time. I think that there is because the casting is so limited, it's a what is a
Yeah.
3 or 4-person cast?
Yep. Yeah.
It
Four.
feels yeah, 4 it feels like anyone could do anything at any moment. Like, it feels like everybody is very, important to the story, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
Scream where you don't know who's gonna be the turning point, you know?
Hmm.
And but I think that you did it really well, where we don't think that Sylvia is at all gonna be the turning point, and then
Cool.
she, kinda comes out of left field. You think that she's just gonna be like a sad sack for the whole movie, and maybe one of the friends
No.
will avenge her or something, I don't know.
Right. Right. Mhm.
Are you is this kind of you said this is your first time kind of working in a thriller setting.
Yeah.
What do you usually like to write about? What do you usually like to direct? And what are you gonna do in the future?
Usually I don't spend I don't get to spend that much time actually working on my own material, which is
Mhm.
something that has been, I think a lot of us learned during the pandemic and then during the strikes as well. They're like, all right, cool, the time exists, you just have to find it.
Yeah.
And so I have been spending a lot of time recently actually developing the work that it is that I want to create,
Mhm.
as a filmmaker, which is exciting. And the thriller genre is the thriller, the horror genre, but also with the elements sprinkled in as they are in Sylvia Says Goodbye of the human drama. They're
Mhm.
kind of my primary areas of interest. Like before this, I've just made um, and written very low key uh, dramas about the human condition, and just there's something inherently thrilling about that, but not in a in a genre package. So yeah, I'm very interested in stories that kind of weave together the fabric of the human condition with the dangerous things that people can do to each other. People who seem like totally normal, kind of like the characters do for at least a hot minute. And Sylvia Says Goodbye until you realize, okay, they're not getting
Right.
together for just a casual Friday night.
And then Sylvia Says Goodbye, literally, it's a hot minute. So
Exactly.
have you found that working in post-production has helped, your, like, directing skills? Like, because you've had whatever time crunches or budget crunches and all those sort of things in post, are you thinking about the edit too? Like, while you're shooting?
Completely. Completely. Yeah, almost to a detrimental degree that it's like all I can think about.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at things like if I had the resources, I would have asked our editor to be like, on set and be cutting things together like
Yeah,
immediately, like on set. But I working with people that I trust well enough, and my co-director and DP, Ryan Heilman, like he knows what it is that I'm trying to get, and felt confident as we're going through it that like this will cut together in the way that we did. And yeah, definitely. So it's challenging, for sure, and more time and more resources would be great. But I can pretty confidently say that even if we had been in prep on Sylvia Says Goodbye for like a week, and we shot for a week and then cut for like weeks afterwards, that
mhm,
pretty much the same movie that
mhm,
we are premiering next week, which is exciting because we
yeah,
definitely went into it with the mind to set that like what can we do to actually finish it. There's some issues with sound, there always are,
mhm,
and we can't really do anything about it in the moment, but we were
yeah,
prepared for it. And there is some ADR in there, which is hopefully invisible, but yeah, just trying to not fix it in post and fix it on set is
mm.
what I wish everyone uh, would do. But it's I wouldn't have a job though, I guess, if everyone
Yeah,
did
right,
that.
yeah, it's ironic coming from you who gets employed by Fix It in Post.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple things that where I disappointed myself. Like I knew that wasn't going to match with the other one, and like the color is way off.
Yeah.
And I said out loud, "We can fix it later." Okay, cool, fine. Fair enough. I I fall guilty. I am guilty of it as well.
Does it influence your shot lists at all, or what's your style on that front? A lot of people don't use
Yeah.
shot lists. A lot of people just say, "Oh, get the coverage," or whatever, which stresses me out. I need the shot list. But,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but what are you, like, specifically, like, you can see it in your head, what it's gonna look like in the edit, more or less?
I can pretty much see it. I can pretty much see it until suddenly I do get kind of like a left fielder idea, or somebody
Mm,
throws out like a really awesome idea that I hadn't considered at all. And like the closing shot, I don't really want to talk about it here, obviously, but the closing shot of the film was something that did happen like very unexpectedly,
yeah,
and Ryan just kind of was wandering around with the camera while we were getting ready to do some coverage of that's something the cutaway that actually got cut completely from the film. But
mhm,
he was outside. He was like, I found the closing shot, and like the stubborn part of me at first was like, but we already have our closing shot. And then I saw
mhm,
what he was looking at. I'm like, oh God, you're right. So let's shoot it and be open like in the moment, expanding that shot list, knowing that
mhm.
it could start the film, and the worst you can do is throw it away. And it was the last thing that we shot, so it worked out well.
I think it's a perfect little final image
Good,
moment.
good.
It really
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
do
it
too.
wraps up the whole story, which is good.
Yeah,
So, it's
good.
always nice to have that kind of feeling at the end
Right.
of, any movie, but especially a short film, where you're like, "Okay, I get it. I know what happens.
You know what happens. Good,
I know what
good.
happens, and it's entertaining, and that's what a movie is supposed to do."
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it had finality, and um, that you got it. That's the other question too. It's like this makes sense to me, but when people start to watch it, like, do you understand
Right.
what happened at all? And so, like, thankfully, it sounds like it makes sense.
Well, and it'll be really cool to see it in front of a bigger audience on a theater screen. It's
Yeah,
humongous screen, and it's so funny
yeah,
because people laugh at the wrong times, they gasp at the wrong times, and
yeah.
but they really do. What I found is, like, they appreciate what's on screen more because it's more to look at. When you're like, I
Absolutely.
found that you're kind of like, I'm at least captivated by whatever's on screen. It's
Sure.
different than watching it on my phone or watching it on my laptop. But when it's
Mhm.
on screen, it's like, okay, I'm noticing every little thing.
Right.
Especially when you shoot something like this, and there are little bits and pieces and special little coloring aspect that you put in, and you
Mhm.
notice it.
Yeah,
And maybe if I watched it on my phone, I wouldn't notice it, but if I see it on a huge screen that's right in front of my face, I'm gonna
yeah,
notice it and I'm gonna appreciate it, which I think is
yeah.
is great. So it'll be really fun.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I can't wait. And I feel like it's such a short piece too that I feel like by the time it sets in that it's actually like playing in front of an audience, it'll be over. So like I plan on just kind of like looking
Don't
at
black
the
out.
audience. And, yeah,
Don't blink, don't
exactly.
black out.
Right.
Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much, John. This was so great. The Movie Screeners Club is produced by Designing Hollywood Productions in association with Gardena Cinema. If you want to win the chance to have your short film screened in a huge theater and the opportunity to be interviewed on our podcast, please submit your film today on our website, themoviescreenersclub.com. This episode was sponsored by Gardena Cinema.